Hey,
Hey,
mamas.
welcome back to another episode. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic over here. I hope you guys have all been enjoying season 2. So, guys, let's get right into it.
Yes.
Today we have a special guest, lovely lady, and today she will be called Sally. Sally, hello. How are you?
Hey. Love it.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
So, guys, today I've got a question for you guys, or not a question. I just wanted to discuss this. Have you ever felt, or have you ever thought about having a broken family? Not that we want it, but have you ever felt or thought about how would it affect your children? How would it affect you guys, or how would you be in the situation? Obviously, I know that we won't know until we're actually in those shoes, but what's your thoughts on that?
I personally have, not because, I want to experience it, but I can say that I've at times thought, like seeing like a close person, like to my circle, become a single parent. I've seen them with their partner, and now all of a sudden, they're dealing with their kids alone. I have kind of thought, how do they cope? Like, how does it work? Or when you see, some mothers that choose to use their kids against the dads, and I'll always be the one like, no, you can't do that. But like, I know that everyone's situation is very different, and it all really depends on how the relationship ended. Personally, I always say, and I've spoken to my partner about this, that, that if we ever break up, I don't think I'd be able to get into another relationship. And I say this now because I just don't think I could, offer my kids stability with someone else and me not being sure of that person. Because, if I couldn't offer them that with their own dad, what makes you even think that I'm going to last with another person? Obviously, that person's going to have to love my kids as if it were their own. And I just can't. I don't know. I think I'm just too paranoid. For me, I couldn't live with them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is going to sound very saddo, but I feel like I would also just stay single forever because I couldn't even make friends in uni. So starting all over again with another person, and like aside of, coming to a comfortable stage with them as a woman, then having to work on coming comfortable with having them around your children and how all of that affects my child as well. Like, it's a very massive thing, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys. I've always said I'll probably end up alone with like 10 cats and like 20 goats. Yeah, I don't want it to be an episode of EastEnders. I'm all right. Sally?
I don't have any kids at the moment. And I think from my background, I grew up as like with a single mom. And it was challenging, I guess. It was really strange. It wasn't like my friends who had divorced parents, like they would see their dads on a weekend or something. Like, I remember being in school and they were like, oh, what are you doing the weekend? And they'll say, oh, I'm going to see my dad. I'm like, and that's weird. Like, I don't know what that is. I don't get it. And it's because there was a point where my dad left. I think my parents were separate. Like, my parents were separated and getting a divorce at that point. And I hadn't seen him since I was like 6, until I was 10 or 11. And it was super weird, like hearing people celebrate Father's Day, hearing, my friends going to their dad's houses or having their parents together. It's like, I wish I had that. I don't know, like, it's just, for me anyway, it was really like strange, I guess.
I think the older you got, did you ever kind of ask your mum?
So I have a really weird relationship with my mum, and that when I was a child, she was a mum to me. And then all of a sudden, the roles kind of switched and I became more of a parent and she became more of a child. Not in a disrespectful way or anything like that. It's just the way that she leaned on me. She would confide in me in these moments and telling me about my dad and telling me about the things that my dad would do to her, like sexual things. She would say, he would just have sex with me. He wouldn't even kiss me. At that point, I was like 18. I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
So this would be pre-divorce?
Yeah. So my parents, they weren't married when I was born. They got married 4 years later. And my dad ended up leaving our house when I was 6. And he didn't turn up until I was 11 or something. My mum had surgery, and then we had to stay at his house, and that's pretty much as much contact I can remember having with him. Like birthdays, I wouldn't see him. Christmases, I wouldn't see him. Like nothing, literally nothing. No phone calls, no visits, nothing. Like I wouldn't see my dad at all. And that really traumatized me, I guess, because I was like, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't my dad want to see me? I thought he loved me, you know? And my mum would say, your dad loves you, And I'm like, I don't believe it. I don't get it. And then my dad came back into my life when I was 14. And he stayed with us until I was 18, I think. And then he left again. And then again, the cycle happened. I don't see him again for years. And then at that point when I was 18, she was telling me about these issues that they were having as a couple. She was okay to say it to me, I guess. In my mind, I don't know how I feel about it now. I don't know. I'm a child. I don't know what to do with this information. I really don't know.
Do you think you would have been better off not knowing any of that rather than have known?
No, I think I benefited from knowing all of this because my dad, and I see it now, my dad emotionally abused me. He would use me as a weapon. He would use me emotionally and try and get me to go against my mom or try and get me on his side for an ulterior motive. And I see that now. And putting a label onto it really helped me. I needed to know what exactly he was doing to me. And I needed to know who he was because there were things that he was doing to me that it doesn't make any sense. If I was to tell you everything, he didn't turn up at my 15th. For my wedding, he didn't show up. My loads of different events that have happened in my life, he wasn't there. And then all of a sudden he'll come back and it'll be sweet, nothing. And he'll buy me gifts. He'll buy me things what do you need? What do you want? He paid for my university. And it was this instability. I think for me, the question is, would I have preferred him not knowing him at all? Or actually having this situation happen to me? And I feel maybe at this point, maybe not knowing him at all would have been better.
Did you ever ask your dad, did you ever have a conversation, a sit down, you know what, Dad, I'm grown enough now. Why? What happened?
So after he left when I was 18-ish, I think I was, I started seeing him and he'll suddenly reappear just before I got married. And he gave me a lump sum of £1,000 or something like that. I can't remember how much it was and I needed it. And I thought he would turn up at my wedding. He didn't. So great, fantastic. Didn't see him for a while. I was really upset because then I found out what he was actually doing. And then a year later into my marriage, he comes back into my life. And I thought, sweet, my dad's back. Maybe there's reparation. Maybe there's something that we can, repair this relationship. Thinking it was something to do with me. Actually, it's all to do with him. And it's weird because he was pushing me to rent a house or buy a house with him. He wanted me to buy a house with him. And I was like, excuse me? You have left me every single time I needed you. How can I trust you to even buy a house? A mortgage is a 25-year commitment. I'm 26 at this point. You haven't committed anything to me. You haven't been there for me. So how can I trust you? And he gets this whole drama. Oh my God, I'm so hurt. I can't believe you would say that to me. This is all your mom's fault. This is all your grandma's fault. They're turning you against me, blah, blah, blah. And I was just no, I know the truth. I know you didn't visit us to hurt my mom. You didn't think anything about us. You thought about yourself and you thought about hurting my mom. Yeah, it's just a lot.
Did you ever see point of view of your mom? Because obviously referring back to my question is that I always think, if anything was to go wrong or end sour or, it goes down to us to either tell them our kids the full story or a pretty story, being selective at what you're telling your child, especially because we know that the trauma that it is put onto them and how it influences the person that they become. So do you feel like you could understand maybe your mum's reasonings of taking your dad back on several occasions?
Yes, like she would tell me why she would bring him in. At different points, the reason why she'll bring him back is because he said sorry, or he, just trying to make amends and try and be different. But then you see his actions. My mom always told me because I'm the eldest in my family. She would tell me bits, but she wouldn't tell me the full story. It was only until I was like a bit older that she would tell me and confide in me like these big things. She didn't have to tell me. I saw it for myself and I experienced it for myself. Like for us as Latinos, your 15th is a big thing. From that point, I just saw that my dad didn't care. Like he promised me something. Like he promised me when I was like 14 that he would do something big for me. He didn't show up. So from there, like I understood who he was. I knew that my mum wasn't lying. And I couldn't blame my mum for anything because she was trying to, keep the family together. And to be honest, I feel like she was better off not doing that. She was hurting herself. She was hurting her kids. My dad is a toxic person.
Would you agree? Because obviously, I know we're touching on you, but would you say for those children that are going to grow up without a dad because their mothers have also experienced certain situations, I feel like some women often, if the relationship ends, they automatically assume that the relationship with the dad ends too. Now, I know this is not the case for everyone, but would you agree and send some light to those people that have grown up without a dad, that because of the type of person they are, obviously mums know best, and to because I know that for me, I have someone very close to my family who grew up without a dad, and his dad's kind of like yours. I think maybe yours was more present, and he had other kids but he really makes an effort with them, whereas with this other person he doesn't. And obviously I've seen this person literally cry his eyes out. Now he says, my dad's a dickhead and X, Y, and Z. So it's kind of shining light out to people to kind of make them aware that, yes, it's a father figure is really important, but like you say, you would have preferred living without that than having, drop-ins and outs, and kind of because I feel like for you, it's almost like you held on to this never-ending esperanza.
100%.
You wanted things to change, but it never, and you kept giving one chance and second chance and third chance to see, come on, Dad, you can do it. It's like you literally wanted to push him to try and make the change, but then you obviously now, years later, you've realised, well, a person, I can't physically force you to change. It's clear you don't want to make the commitment to me. You haven't done so, for the past years. Why would you do it now that I'm a grown-ass woman?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel like it was quite funny because I kept pushing for it. I kept wanting to see him. I kept wanting this thing. It wasn't until my husband told me, your dad is toxic. Your dad is abusing you. And it's so funny because I did this workshop about domestic abuse and stuff. And my husband asked me, what was that workshop about? What would those women tell that woman to do? And I said, to escape, to try and leave that person. And he was like, you need to do the same with your dad. You need to block him. You need to cut him off your life because he is doing bad things to you. And this came out from a situation we ended up living together for a while, a good 3-4 months. And then he broke his promise. And then, he did what he even wanted to do. He promised me certain things and it didn't happen. And I was broken. I was like, not only has he left me in a position where I'm struggling to find a place to rent, to live, to put a house of my head. I have all these other commitments. I was doing my master's. I was working. I was doing so many other things. And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, this is not good enough. I'm going to leave. Luckily, my husband's been my rock and has put with a lot with me. And it's been a year and a bit since I haven't spoken to my dad. And he will send me gifts. He will send me things on my birthday, on Christmas. And the worst thing is, and I'll tell you this, I would get anxiety on my birthday because I'll be like, well, if he doesn't ring me, it means he doesn't care, but I don't want him to ring me because I don't know how I'm going to respond. And it was just this back and forth in my head, like, you've blocked him. You've literally blocked him. He can't contact you. He can't touch you. You've taken control. He doesn't deserve this relationship with you right now.
Mama's Code.
What Erica was saying, you, in a way, you're hoping for that person to change.
Every time.
And it's because you love them. You see past everything, and even though in a way maybe in the back of your mind you might see what is happening isn't right, you still have hope because you love that person and you think, I love them so much, surely they'll love me as well the same way I do, so this time it will be okay.
You're literally lying to yourself, and it's annoying because you really wish that person changes. Like, you're my dad, why don't you love me?
What's wrong with me? Like you were saying, like, why, you stick around for a few months, you do these things on my birthday, you send me gifts. Why is it so easy to just send me materialistic things and not your love? And,
He's buying her love because he knows, deep down, he knows that it's kind of like, when like a partner, like your partner is physically and mentally abusing you. So it's like he's hitting at you, but you can't see, you bleeding, or you can't see your bruises. But inside, you can see all the Daniel that he's doing to you. If your partner beats you up and leaves you with a black eye, he'll the next day be like, you know what, I'm wrong for this. Like, I shouldn't have done this. And then they'll send you roses. But it's like, why do you insist on, even these gifts? It's almost like a promise because you still hold on to that. Well, he still cares. It makes you smile in a way because you're like, well, you know what, like, no matter what the situation is, he's thinking of me. But it's also like a tactic that abusers use to like keep triggering you in your mind. Maybe I should unblock him, or maybe he's going to start sending like
100%
little messages through other people and trying to reach out to you. And that's literally an abuser. Like, I've read so many cases of, abusers trying to get in through one way or another, but they will work their way in your life again.
And he will use my brother. He would like tell my brother to send a message to me like, oh, like this whole COVID-19, like my brother will call me like, oh, dad wants to know if you're okay. I'm like, well, I'm alive, aren't I? So, like it's really frustrating. And I don't know why it's affected me more than my brother.
I think it's more so because, that thing that, girls are more attached to their daddies because, your daddy's little princess. And, I, for one, can say, like, I adore my dad and, like, he's my best friend. And it's not that I love him more than my mom, but I just have that closer connection with him. Like, I can literally tell my dad anything. And I just know he won't judge me. Whereas with my mum, I have like a different relationship. So I think it's that as well. You growing up with maybe other people and maybe also kind of being like, why couldn't my dad do what that girl's dad is doing? Like, why do I have to have like a dad that's neglecting me in some sort of way? Like, am I not enough? That's the question you probably ask yourself. That shouldn't even cross your mind because you're amazing. But that's how much it's triggered you and damaged you inside.
Yeah, no, and literally everything that you're saying is 100% correct. When I was younger, I did question a lot, like, why can't he love me the way that I should be loved? And I didn't get it. And my self-worth and self-esteem just went plummeting down. As a teenager, I really was like hurt and broken and just in pieces.
Do you think as well that because you said you're the eldest, that you felt a way of protecting maybe your brother? Maybe he was sheltered from more of the stuff that you were able to see. I have a younger brother as well, but I know that growing up, whenever they would be like, oh, he would ask me certain things, I'd be like, oh, I would always kind of play it down, sugarcoat it a little bit with any situation really. So do you think maybe that's why your brother kind of doesn't see how much pain and hurt your dad may have inflicted on you?
Yeah, maybe. I think that I remember one time my parents were arguing and I remember covering his ears. It's so strange, as if I can like stop him from hearing anything. And he was like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, nothing. I just wanted to cover your ears. I do think he didn't see everything because he was much younger. Like, but I think when I explained to him what happened with like the whole renting thing, that's when he understood what was happening.
Mama, I love you.
Does this change your mind on kids?
1,000%. I think kids are a blessing. They're honestly, like, I look at my friends' kids, I'm just like, wow, look how smart these kids are, and look how great they are, look how fast they're growing.
But
I'm so scared to have kids because the things that have happened to me, I feel like I might cause some trauma onto them. Like, I might project something onto them. Like, this whole thing that's happened with my dad has made me very defensive because I'm scared someone's going to leave me. I'm scared someone's going to hurt me. So I'm like immediately on my defense mode. And I'm scared that I'm going to traumatize them in a way. I'm scared I'm going to repeat the same mistakes my parents made.
It's crazy because obviously we've established that when you go through such a massive change, that such a big impact like it is having a kid, all your feelings and all these like things that you've compressed and, you know, put at the back of your memories, and you think that, you know, you've got over it, you don't even remember. All of a sudden they just come back to you. You're now having to face them literally in the eye while having to adapt to having a child. So
yeah, that's a no from me. And honestly, I look at mums and I just think, wow, like, you guys are amazing. And like, I look at my mum and I'm like, bloody hell. Like, you did the most for me, and I came out okay. A few bruises, but I'm all right.
This is just a question, but would you not kind of think, you know, maybe when I do have my kids, instead of like thinking so negative, maybe like switch it and think the positive, you know, when I have my kids, I'm going to ensure that I won't let them see, like, if they, you can't guarantee your kids that you're never going to have an argument with your husband.
Right.
That's not going to happen because problems will come and go. But maybe if you kind of thought, you know what, if I have kids, I will do everything in my power to make sure that no trauma that I've gone through, you know, your partner's like very there. And you can see the love you two have for each other. So for you to kind of like sit down and be like, well, I'm going to try my best, you know.
To fight for the best outcome.
To see, because, you know, like if we kind of like, I understand that obviously you say that kids are not for you, but if you kind of think of it like that, then I just feel like you're not going to come out of that kind of mind space you're at. Because I think, like, obviously talking about it and like facing all the fears that you kind of have, which obviously touches on, you know, motherhood. Why would I become a mom if I have so many problems? And like Jess had said, when you become a parent, all your insecurities come out because you have this baby and then you're like, oh my God, what if I break up with X, Y, and Z? What if, you know, he becomes a shit dad all of a sudden and he's not the person that I once fell in love with? You know, everything's coming up, but it's your subconscious of what's happened to you. It doesn't necessarily mean that your kid's going to go through that, because as a mom, you become defensive regardless. So, you know, all right, you don't want to be a part of my child's life, that's fine. But nowadays, I like, because obviously our parents are very old school, so they did things very differently. And, you know, with my partner, if we do argue, we always make sure our kids do not hear us, even if it means us arguing via text.
You know when your fingers are going so fast.
Yeah, literally. And like,
and there's steam coming out.
Crying and fuming, messaging. Because again, it goes down to you saying, you know, once your parents were arguing and you covered your little brother's ears. Those things, parents often think, like, you get so consumed with the world around you and, you know, trying to be the best parent that you forget that your kids don't need you to give them 1,000 gifts. Your kids need you to be their present, you know? The time you spend with your child is more valuable than, you know, how many toys you get them.
Yeah.
So you try, like, you mentally working on yourself and you ensuring that you both nurture this kid as well as you can, because babe, no one has it. Like, you know, we can have a 10-year-old and we're still going to make mistakes along the way. But it's kind of having that mentality, you know, well, I'm going to do everything in my power for my kids not to go through that.
100%. I totally agree with that. Like, it does mean, like, I know exactly what hurts. I was a child. I remember what it's like. It's having that, I guess, the willingness and like the strength to say, I'm going to stop this. I'm not going to repeat this cycle.
And I think, coming to terms with that, maybe pre-baby, you're going in the right direction. And it's not that we're forcing you to like see it this way.
No,
It's obviously two sides of the spectrum. I can relate to you and what Erica was saying in the sense that I come from a broken home as well. I've spoken about this before, and for many years people will ask me, when are you having kids? When are you having kids? Because at one point I honestly, like, kids is not for me, and I've got so many things I want to do and get done. And then I reached probably 24 and my partner was like, Chess, like, we should think about having kids, like, because he always wanted to be a young dad. But in the back of my mind, I was so focused on, no, I need to do what I need to do first. But I know partly it was also because in my head I thought, my parents are split, so it's going to happen to me as well. And we have to be realistic. Not all relationships are going to go to death do us apart. Just because you're married and you're got kids doesn't mean you're not working on it every single day. And I think for many years it was me coming to terms with, Jess, but you need to heal. You need to come to terms with your feelings about the whole situation, with what happened with your parents, how you saw your sister grow up, because she, if anything, she had it a bit tougher. So it was coming to terms with, I don't want that for my child, so I'm going to push and fight for the best. And even if I end up being a single mom, making the best of the situation. And okay, yes, we're not going to use each other's words as weapons. I'm not going to dampen the image you have of your dad to my child, because why am I going to take that away from them, So it was coming to terms with everything and coming to peace with that hatred that I felt and that hurt,
Well, I think that's a very valid point, what Jess was saying, I don't know if you've misread what I'm saying, but I'm not telling you that you're going to have a kid and, your relationship is going to be like the best thing ever. It's not about that. I think with you, it's, kind of being in that mentality, like what's affected you is, not having a stable dad. Because if we turn it around and your parents broke up, but your dad was very involved,
it would have been
a different story. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think what you need to focus on is, okay, me and my partner will do the best we can. If anything goes down, God forbid it doesn't, and you can't work on it, you guys, on top of everything, have to sit down and work on your child. You have to have a relationship because you're doing it for this child. So it's kind of like coming to terms with, thinking of everything. Like Jess says, whether it takes 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, you need to be sure of yourself, because, babe, when you do have a child, the demons will come out to play, because you will question every little thing and every little argument. You're going to think, shit, this is it. I'm going to become a single mom. He's going to become an absent father. And then it's just going to be my life, my childhood all over again. We don't obviously want to kind of like sell you this dream, like, no, well, you should have kids because, your life is not going to be like what you experienced as a child. Like, it's not that. And like, it's so advanced now where, like some parents become like best friends. The key point is to make sure your child grows up with the two parents, because you need both parents just the same way you needed each other to have sex and make this baby. That baby deserves to have a mum and a dad. Whether the dad and mum are not together, that's not the point. You need your parents to get, basically to get along in order for you to, because that's kind of like an example you set to your kid for when they're growing up. And I think that's what kind of like kills you inside. I don't have an example, pass that on. But you should already set that in your mind to be that example.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that 100%. And I think it would have been different. Like if I saw my parents arguing, if they had apologized to each other in front of me as well. Like I think that would make a huge difference. The respect, this whole thing, like I see my parents fighting, okay, what's going on now? Like, are they okay? Are they not okay? Are they going to get divorced? What's going on? Like, what is this? But having them apologize to each other, I think that would make a huge difference. And having my dad tell me and apologizing to me would make a huge difference as well. But like, that's like asking for like the sea to be parted in two. So I don't know when that's going to happen. Because he doesn't see it. He doesn't see that he's done anything wrong. He doesn't get it. And that hurts even more.
Do you know what's a beautiful thing right now? Is that you can focus on yourself and literally heal before any step you decide to take. And if you still, at the end of it, decide you don't want children, it is what it is. So many people are happy without children. So many people are happy with children.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation, a podcast that I would like to have later on. I definitely have my views on that.
There's a lot of pressure on women as well, because it's like, this is what you're made,
That's
you're
what
made
women
to
are
do.
for. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like you
child.
get married. Well, you get a boyfriend, you get married, and then you have to have a child. It shouldn't be like that.
But the main thing right now is you've realised that you need to heal from past experiences in your childhood, and you can.
Exactly.
And it's just you and your husband, and you can focus on just that.
I want to get into this because I know how strong you are in this area, and I just want to see if it's based on your experience as, you know, your upbringing and obviously what you see around the world now, or is it, you know, like, did it shape you to become that strong feminist person that you are?
I love that. I think it was because I saw my mom and I saw so many other women in my life just do everything, become providers, become, you know, managers of amazing companies and stuff like that. And I just saw how amazing it is to be a woman and appreciating like who we are. Like, you know, like, do you know how mad it is that you can carry a human being? Like, that's insane. Like, you guys have created something in there. And, you know, for the patriarchy and for men to tell us that we can't do something or to treat us in a certain way, or for us to get microaggressions, I'm like, screw you. Like, have you had any clue about what we go through every month? Like, that's like the top bit, like the surface level thing, let alone how we manage everything else. Like, it's just madness. I've seen the way that women have been treated by men, especially in our community, the Latino community. I just think, why can't women do this? Why can't women be, you know, doing the same thing as everyone else? Like, why do we have to be separate? Why do we have to be the ones at the back baking? Like, what is this? I can do so much more to this. And I think what we were touching on about women having to have kids is like, I don't need to be a factory for you, okay? Like, if I don't want children, that doesn't make me less of a woman.
Amen, sister.
I was just going to say, you've always talked about equality and you're very strong about that. And I think that's definitely something we all admire of you.
Not a lot of people like it.
Fuck what the rest think.
It's okay.
Literally.
It's okay.
Well, everyone talks about equality, but so now apparently I'm not suited.
Yeah, apparently I can't be a builder. Why? Tell me why again? Like, I can pick up a brick and put cement down, trust me.
Do you know what? I think if that was acceptable back then, so be it. But right now, I think that's a change. And I definitely think as parents, we have a massive responsibility with our children, both if they're a boy or a girl, because 100%. For a boy, you're teaching them about equality, you're teaching them about emotions, and you're teaching them that it's okay to feel these things and it doesn't make you any less or any more of a man.
100%.
As a woman, you're making sure that they're being raised to you know, feel like they can and do anything. You know, having Maya, sometimes I feel like the pressure to make sure that she feels that she can and be anything that she wants, sometimes that's a big thing, because I don't want her to ever go into a place and someone to say to her, which unfortunately it probably will happen because things in this world just don't change as fast as we want them to, but for her to be told, no, you can't do this or you can't be that because you're a woman. If that's the case, then we're building strong minds for them to be like, okay, cool, that's your opinion. I'm still gonna go do it.
I think it's so funny because looking at history, in World War II, women were like the workforce in the UK. Like they were literally doing everything because the men were out in war. As soon as the men came, the women were back into their households and they were like, what the hell? Like we just like did the most for the UK and you're telling us that to go back to the kitchen. No. That's not how it works. No, like I want to work. I want to do the most for my family too, because you're both providers.
Yep.
As nurturers and materially. Like why does the woman have to be the nurturer and the man to be the provider materially? It doesn't make any sense. Like you're both made that baby, you both should be nurturers and you both should be providing materially. Like come on guys, let's get to the program. Like, you know, it's not that hard.
What Melissa was saying, you know, about it's on us to teach our children equality. And I say this because right now I'm having to kind of, like both myself and my partner are kind of having to teach Joel whenever it's something to do with the kitchen, he doesn't just have to come to me. Like I have it really hard because, but it also kind of like reflects back on me, but I'm always in the kitchen, you know, I'm the one that cooks, I'm the one that cleans. So it's kind of like he already has that mirror there. Well, you do it all, so why would I ask my dad? Do you get what I'm saying? It should start from there, but obviously Ollie's working, so when he's hungry, he's like, Mummy, come on, go and make the food. In a realistic way. And if I was very feminist, I'd be like, who the hell do you think you're talking to?
No,
ask your dad to do it.
I think the way that I look at it as well, I think, you know, it's not just the roles that we have at home. It's how we treat each other. It's, you know, the different things that how we interact with the world. So maybe at this point in this season in your life, yes, you might be in the kitchen and that's okay. That's fine. That no one says that that's a wrong thing. Like, and I think with feminism, people get really confused. Like feminism is about me as a woman having the choice. And if I choose to do X, Y, and Z, then that should be respected and that should be okay. Like if I want to have kids or if I don't want to have kids, those decisions are just as acceptable. Like one isn't greater than the other. And I think people get that confused a lot of the time. And I think when you're raising kids, and I don't have kids and I can't talk about it, but I think with this, it's like, it's about being intentional. Maybe it's not so much about the kitchen, but maybe books and videos that they're watching, you know, those things help too. It's not just, I think it's different things that you can do in a bit of being creative and being intentional about what you're doing as well. But again, I don't have kids, so...
Finding that balance again because when you become a mother and there's just too many things to balance, and sometimes the scales are like tipped over to, sometimes you just end up having everything on your side because it's the easiest way. And it's just, you know, we all know that we have to go easy on ourselves and, you know, change ourselves to change our children's mindsets and the way they're growing up. But
I think you guys need to not put so much pressure on yourself, because I feel like all three of you are very strong women and have a very strong way of thinking. And you know, when you decide to do something, you guys have gone and done it, you know, like you've gone and pursued it, and that in itself is a big example of, you know, strong women being empowered and being able to do what they want to do and reach their goals. Like that in itself is a massive thing, and I think you should pat yourself in the back. And you know, you're trying, and that's the biggest thing that you can do. Like you can't win everything, but at least you're trying, and that's the big thing. Thank you for coming to my TED
Talk. From just my experience, Dan's always saying these grey hairs I have on my hair are you and Maya. You will overrun me because you
that
are
is outrageous.
you the way you're running with her, you know, every day I'm like, Maya, you're beautiful, you're strong, show me your muscles, you're beautiful, you're strong. And I'm from a young age, just for her to hear these things and for it to be normal for her.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm like, Maya, go to daddy, show daddy your muscles. And she's like, I'm strong, you know. Aww. These little things. And you know, for him, he doesn't see it as a bad thing, but I can imagine that some people will.
Yeah.
And I think when you decide to have or start a family, you want to be able to have some common grounds there, you know, not be too different in areas.
Yeah. So I've been married for 6 years in September now. And along the way, marriage is literally about compromising. It's literally about having those difficult conversations, having, you know, how we're going to sort this out and stuff like that. And you have to have a conversation. And if you're going to have a child, I can imagine you guys had conversations about how you wanted to raise your kids, or what your plans were, what you dreamt of, or how you wanted to do it.
Even if they don't go to plan.
Even if they don't go to plan, like, you already have envisioned what you want for your children. And having those discussions will obviously give you an insight on how that person thinks.
If you're raising a boy, what would be your motto, let's say, of implementing that feminist in him? We have amazing partners that we have the same morals and values, and, you know, we agree on a lot of things, but men will always be men and women will always be women at the end of the day.
And we have to celebrate those differences as
Exactly. So, but it's bringing that and kind of like being the bridge between the two sexes to raise a child that's going to be the change of the world, basically.
I think it's, so for example, Melissa mentioned it, where boys, you know, when they're Erica mentioned it about being emotional, if they're crying and stuff. I think it's important that we don't say what our parents used to say, don't cry, you're a boy. You know, those kind of phrases that we've noticed in our community, we need to stop that. We need to not let that happen. You know, it's about, okay, baby, you can cry. It's okay. Talk to me. What happened? And kind of being eye to eye with the kid and being able to have that conversation about what was hurting, what are you feeling. Those kind of things are what I would expect to do if I was to have a boy. I think I would try and push as much as possible to show him like superheroes that were women, like those kind of things, and kind of normalize those things that we tend to see as stereotypes. So men cleaning, men cooking, all those little things, and trying to show him this is normal, this is what you should be doing. And I guess the same would happen with my husband. My husband cooks and cleans a lot, to be honest. Like he cleans the kitchen because I cannot be arsed. I'm so sorry. I refuse to touch a dish. And he cooks a lot. So I can imagine, you know, if my kid was growing up, he's going to see those things happening. Again, like not everyone has got the skills to cook and, you know, clean as well. So that, you know, you can't force that upon somebody. But I think, again, like I said, it's just being intentional about the things that you're doing. So for example, if we're watching football, maybe watch a girls' football match. You know, show those kind of things happen, like going on. The little things make a huge difference and they impact the most, I think.
Do you know what? It's really, it's good hearing it from someone that's not a mother, because obviously you have a different view. You're outside of the box, whereas, you know, inside, you know what you want for your child and you know what you want to implement into them. But sometimes we're so, not that you turn a blind eye to these things, but you just think that what you're doing, you're kind of ticking all the boxes that your child needs to have, basically. So it's like just what you said, you know, about the football. It's like, yes, there's female World Cups and football, but you don't really go to, like, you'll tell your child, oh yeah, women play football too, or, you know, they're playing it at the school, but you don't really take the time out to say, let's change the channel, let's see girls play football. And it's those little things that we need to apply onto. And it's just, you know, like I said, you as a mother, as a person that's not a mother, just by saying that just makes me like
see it from a different angle.
Oh shit, that's so true.
Yeah, obviously I can't tell you how to parent your kids.
No, but it's little things that, you know, it's just like, oh, it's so easily done, like just change the channel, like that's what you have to do. And the same with boys, like you were saying about the cooking. The best chefs in the world are men.
Yeah, you imagine.
Yeah, just because the person at home is the female, the mom that cooks, it happens to be the stereotype, but actually
it's crazy.
What if your boy is a young chef and you don't even
imagine?
You know,
I'll be fuming. I love food.
That would be amazing.
Joe and Kaden make very nice croissants.
Oh, so they're pastry chefs, yeah.
But I think those, for example, those things that you know, Erica does with the boys, it's like there is no like just I do this, or you know, it's like come in the kitchen, get involved, let's do these things together, and it just becomes normal. I just think, like we really need to focus on the smaller things because it's what makes the biggest difference and changes in the world. And at the end of the day, like I'm tired of saying this, like we are raising the next generation. We are raising a happier world, and we need to be on our toes to, yes, I know I just said let's not put pressure on each other, but again, it's the little things.
Yeah, exactly. Don't downplay the little things that you're doing because you're doing a great job.
If you were to become a mother at one point, if it was to happen,
Go on.
is there anything that you would do differently as to what your mum did? Because I know for a fact we all always say, I will do this thing different or that. For me, it would be communication with my child.
Oh, that's big. I think for me, it would be letting, like I think I mentioned it earlier, making sure that I'm always the mum. Like I am the mum and you are the child. And my job is to protect you. My job is to be like sheltering you, being your refuge, not the other way around. I think I would have benefited a lot from that. My mum, it's not to say that my mum has never done it. It's that she did it to a certain point. And I don't know what happened, to be honest. I don't know where that shift happened, but it did. And I am right now the protective, the making sure that she's okay, the refuge, the shelter that she comes to. And I wish it was the other way around, I think.
Puppy. Good girl.
Right, so we always love to close our episodes with a golden tip, and as you are our lovely guest, Sally, what would be your golden tip for this episode?
I just want to say to all the moms and everyone listening, mainly the moms, because this is for you. You guys are doing an amazing job, and the little things that you do make a huge difference. And, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. You're doing a great job, and, you are loved by your kids. Like, you are their world. So,
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
You are awesome, mate.
I just want to say something as well, that no pressure for you either on kids or no kids, You're a powerful woman, you're strong as well, and you should be empowered with what you've experienced. Fix your crown and keep walking.
Thanks, man. Love that.
Yes, queen.
Fix them crowns.
Can we have some fireworks that, you put at the concert, like, pew, pew, pew. Mama's code out. Mwah.
Mama's Code.